Good morning. Welcome to this month's edition of Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation's third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat. My name is Bettina Campbell. I am the Special Populative Administrator, and I'm also a Medicaid CHIP Assister for Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, which is the parent corporation of Healthy Kids Mississippi. I am your moderator for today. We also have this morning Sister Lottie Miner, who is our Project Director for Oak Hill Regional Community Development Center, and also Mr. Thomas Robeson, who is our Technology and Metrics Director. Our Technology and Medical Director. Remember, we are streaming today's webinar on Oak Hill Regional Community CDC Healthy Kids Mississippi Facebook page. And we ask that you please share your social media pages with your family and friends. Today, we have two guests with us. Our first guest is Ms. Caroline Barnett, who is no stranger. If you remember, she is from the M.R. Davis South Haven Public Library, and she's going to remind us all about the wonderful services and opportunities offered by First Regional Libraries in Mississippi. Our second guest will be Dr. Deirdre J. James, who's an MD, and she's affiliated with the Regional One Health Center, Regional One in Memphis, Tennessee. And she will talk to us about diabetes. So first, let's get started. As I stated, Caroline is no stranger to us. However, I'm going to just give you a quick reminder of who she is. She grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. Her first full job was with the Girl Scouts, and currently she works for First Regional Library and has worked at public libraries for over 35 years. Caroline stated that Caroline started as a children's librarian doing story time and working with early literacy events, as well as planning and doing programs for older kids. She loves singing in her church choir, being outdoors, reading, and meeting new people every day at the library. I give you Caroline Burnett.
Good morning. Thank you, Bettina. I'm glad to be with you all again today. I wanted to welcome everyone. And the first thing I want to say is that public libraries are your libraries. You're paying for them. So I always advocate that people not be rude, but be demanding. You should have high expectations of what you should be able to get and find out at your public library. Most people who work in libraries, I won't say all, but most are working there because they are interested and want to help people that are interested in their communities. So be someone who expects to get help and expects to get good information. And if you don't the first time you ask, don't give up. If you want to get biblical, remember that it says, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. So keep going until you get the information. Of course, the library is a place for many different kinds of resources. Everyone knows that you can check out books, DVDs, magazines, newspapers at the library. Lots of libraries have kits, not just for kids, but we have science kits, art kits, storytime kits. Those are available not only for places like daycare centers or teachers to check out, but also for individual families. Lots of those things have lots of resources inside, like magnifying glasses, science experiment ideas, craft supplies, puppets. And think of those things not just as things when your child maybe has a school assignment, but something that you could do as a family for fun and for learning. Our library also checks out puzzles and cake pans and knitting and crocheting tools. Some libraries throughout the state check out things like lawn tools, computers. During the early part of COVID, our library system did have hotspots to check out so that people could get Wi-Fi access. We do not anymore, but I know that some of the libraries throughout the state do. And I know that's an issue for some folks who live in more rural areas to have good internet access. That's the other thing I would say is, the library is a great place to go if you don't have good computer access. If, for example, you're only able to use your phone or a smaller device for internet access, I, for one, know how hard it is to fill out an application on your phone. So the library is a great place to go and use the free computer, or even if you don't have good Wi-Fi at home, but have a laptop or something, bring that to the library. Some libraries check out laptops or other devices for you to use at home. So just ask. You don't know until you ask what your library might have. There are lots of online resources, which are wonderful, not just for like school reports and that kind of thing, but really it's very hard for libraries to keep up with the latest literature, particularly in things like medical fields or other social services kinds of things. And all libraries have access through the state of Mississippi to something called the Magnolia database. And that gives you access to articles on all kinds of topics, consumer information, lots of health information, legal information. So ask about that. Most libraries have a service called Overdrive where you can download books, magazines, and sometimes movies to your phone or to another device. Or also Libby is an app that most public libraries have where you can use your phone to place holds on books and other resources. So you might be not comfortable with using some of those things, but that's what we love to do at the library, to show you how to use those resources. So again, ask for help. I can't emphasize that enough. We have the resources. We want you to use them. Most of our resources are underutilized because people don't know about them. So I'm telling you to tell your friends and neighbors and get in your public library and ask. And if they don't have it, ask them who else might have it. That's another great resource that we have throughout the state. And after I've gone through a few more things, I'm going to show you some links to get to that information. But for example, if we don't have something at the South Haven Library, we have 14 other branches in just our library system where we can see if they might have the material, and usually we can get things within a couple of days. We are also in partnership with a number of libraries throughout the state, including several of the community colleges and Mississippi State, which gives us just tremendous resources for whatever you might be interested in. And then we also have a service, all public libraries have a service called Interlibrary Loan, where if we don't have it in our system or in our partnership, we can get the materials for you, you know, from Hawaii or any other location. So, and all of those things are free. I should have said that at the very beginning. This, as I said, it's your public library. We're paying for it with our taxes. Almost every resource is free. You do have to pay for things like printing and faxing, just because we have to have the resources to provide those. But all materials you check out should be free. I did want to mention that there are other resources at your library: faxing, scanning services, printing. We have mobile printing at our library where you can send it from your phone, or like if you have a computer at home but don't have a printer, or as lots of people do, I know I do this, the cartridges are so expensive to buy that you might want to come and do your printing at the library. We have color printers, color copiers, if you need that resource. We have a lot of job information, and also it's a good place to come if you're trying to fill out job applications. Lots of libraries, including ours, will help you with resumes, applications. We have lots of classes, not just for children, but for adults, on computers, crafts, local history. Today, we're having at our branch, someone has come from the Rural Legal Services group in Oxford, to do a program on wills. And again, that's a free program. Anybody over the age of 60 in the state of Mississippi is eligible to get this free assistance in setting up your will and other legal documents. Also, we're going to have them come back and do a program on expungement. Lots of times people are not aware that something that got on their record, on their police record, can be expunged after a certain number of years or for various reasons. And a lot of times that'll keep you from doing something like getting a commercial driver's license or working in home health care. And it's not easy, but it is something that you can do, and that you can do it without a lawyer. But this Rural Legal Services have offices throughout the state and should be able to help you with that as well. And again, that is free. Most libraries, including ours, have people helping with tax preparation. During that time of year, we'll be starting ours in February, and it runs through April. We have meeting rooms for community groups. Our library has some wonderful partnerships with the South Haven Arts Council. We do art classes with them once a month for families. We have a gallery where we display the work that everyone has done. We have a great partnership with the Zeta Phi Beta sorority. They help us with an egg hunt every year at Easter time. Last year, the women of Zeta Phi Beta filled 3,000 eggs for the children to find. Omega Psi Phi has helped us with after school tutoring. Alpha Kappa Alpha has done a local authors program during Black History Month. So there's lots of great additional resources. And most libraries are in partnership with other groups in the community, schools, daycares, homeschooling groups, Chamber of Commerce, local businesses, again, legal services, small business center. So the library should be a one-stop shop for you to get information about other things going on in the community. Last night, for example, I spent quite a bit of time helping a gentleman who is applying for his license to grow hemp. Now that is going to be available, medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi. So those are just ways that we can help that you might not think of. So if you need some help, we don't always know everything about it, but we know how to look it up and how to find it and how to help you print, that kind of thing. I would also encourage you, if your child is struggling at school, you certainly should ask the school for resources, but a lot of times the public libraries and even community college libraries in your area might have resources that you can work with your child or have tutoring going on there at the library. We always have reading lists, can help you find things for your child's reading level. If your child is excelling, also come to the library, because we've got lots of resources for children who, sometimes a child who is reading above grade level and, very interested in one particular thing might get a little bored in their class if all, trying to bring all the students along. So we've got resources for just about everything. Can get your voter registration applications at public libraries, all kinds of things. Bettina and her husband and other folks have come to our library and set up a table to help people sign up for health insurance. Lots of libraries do that same kind of thing to help people with getting their Medicare information. Another thing that we're doing is we're collecting, excuse me, the applications for housing. The Oxford Housing Authority covers our area of DeSoto County as well. So we're the collection point for people to turn back in those applications. So I really just can't emphasize enough that if you are trying to find something out and you're getting frustrated trying to look for it or don't have good computer access, come to your public library and see if you can figure out, what you need. And again, ask for help. We don't know what you want till you ask, and then it might take, a little bit of work, but that's what we're there to do. So please do ask for help. We've got lots of other things going on. I've kind of emphasized the community information and that kind of thing, but we've got story times, we have Lego programs, we have Lego kits that you can check out. We do genealogy classes. Lots of people have seed swaps where you can come and bring seeds that you have and get, the heritage or heirloom tomato seeds that you've been looking for. We have game nights, genealogy classes, Pokemon play dates. We're getting ready at our library to have our first Dungeons and Dragons event for teens. So the library really should have things for all ages. And again, be an informed consumer. If your library doesn't have something for your kids, say, you know, I'd really love to see y'all do something for teens or a book club, or I'd like to have more information on African-American authors or on historical events in our area or that kind of thing. Our Friends of the Library sponsor a book sale at our library. The book sale goes on all the time, and you can buy a bag for $5 and you fill it up every time you come to the library for $2. You can stuff a lot of stuff in a bag, I can tell you. We have jewelry sales sponsored by our friends. ESL classes are often held at public libraries. Summer reading, remember that that's a great opportunity to keep your child reading over the summer. There's usually lots of great programs and some fun prizes and incentives to keep kids reading over the summer. I think I've gone on a long enough time, but let me just share this screen that has two things I'd like for you to be aware of. I'm hoping y'all can see this Mississippi Library Association website. It's misslib.org, misslib.org. One thing is a directory of libraries in your area. So I'm going to back up to the home page. So the home page has is just misslib.org. Let me look at this first while we're so on the home page, actually in the middle of the screen says click here for a map of available Wi-Fi library and academic parking lots across the state. We did this during the early part of COVID because so many people didn't have access anymore to the computers in the library, but most libraries have Wi-Fi access, so you can just sit out in the parking lot. Or in our case, we fortunately have a lovely little lake outside our library and nice lot of benches. But you should be able to find your county and places to get Wi-Fi access. And then the other thing is if you go on again on the Library Association homepage under organization, it actually, one thing you might look at too are school libraries, but this directory of Mississippi libraries has academic libraries, public libraries, and again, it's by region and county, and you should be able to find the library. Of course, you can Google this, you know, just libraries in Mississippi, but I have done that, and I find that this is a little quicker access. The other thing about the Mississippi Library Commission, which is a different thing from the Mississippi Library Association. The Mississippi Library Commission is basically the state library. And if you look at that MLC services and go down to book match, you can request, if you don't know where your library is or you can't get to it, it's too far away, or the hours don't meet when you can be able to go there, you can ask the Library Commission, the state library based in Jackson, to find some information for you and get your public library to reach out to you. So again, be a nice but demanding consumer and see how your library can help you with all sorts of things. I'll get off my soapbox now and let somebody else talk. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Carolyn. As usual, you provided us with a wealth of information. Remember that your public library is available to you and they have lots of services. Yes, Caroline? Let me just mention, to save you possibly a little bit of frustration, when you go to get a library card, you do, I will say at any public library, you're going to need to have something with your current local address to show that you're a resident of that area, because that's how libraries are funded, with local
municipality and county funds. So for instance, if you have moved but haven't changed your driver's license, take a bill or a piece of mail, and most libraries will accept something that's on your phone. But do be sure to have that so you can get access to resources right away. But of course, you can also use libraries without having to have a card to check them out. You can usually use the computers. Sometimes there's a minimal charge of $1 to use a computer for a day. And I will also say it may be worth it to you. For example, for people who don't live in our counties, we serve DeSoto, Tate, Tunica, Panola, and Lafayette counties. But we have a lot of people from Marshall County, which is Holly Springs and that area, who, if you work in our counties or go to school in our counties, you're eligible for a free library card, or if you're a resident, of course. And also, if you, for example, work in DeSoto County, your children are also eligible for a free library card in our county. And it's just a fact that our library has more resources than the Marshall County Library. So, you know, I would say be a consumer of several libraries. If you work in one county, live in another, or go to school in another, just check all those resources, because libraries have different funding and have different things. So it's worth getting as much as you can from each place that you are a part of.
Okay, thank you so much. And I don't know if any of you noticed besides me, when she was doing her demonstration with the website, it says jobs. So I'm thinking that that means that you can click on that website and possibly find out about jobs that are available to you. So again, there's so much that you can get at the public library. So don't be a stranger. Tell them Caroline Barnett sent you. Okay. So I thank you so much. And if you have questions, again, we will be able to answer them later. Or if you have questions, we also will be posting this information on our website. So our next guest is Dr. Deirdre J. James. She's an MD and an endocrinologist in Memphis, Tennessee, and is affiliated with Region 1 Health Mississippi. I'm messing up today, y'all. Regional 1 Health Memphis. She received her medical degree from Meharry Medical College School of Medicine and has been in practice between 6 and 10 years. Her specialties are endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism. Endocrinologists treat disorders of hormone secreting glands and that regulate countless body functions. And these elements can include diabetes, thyroid elements, nutritional disorders, pituitary disease, and menstrual and sexual problems. So once again, we're going to present Dr. James to you, and we hope that you will give her your full attention. I'm sure that she has a lot of information and a wealth of information that she's going to share.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this platform today, especially important for this month, being American Diabetes Month here. And I'm just gonna share my screen if that is possible. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you so much to Mrs. Campbell for the wonderful introduction. And so I think there are a few things that everyone should know about diabetes. And I just put this here. I don't have any conflicts of interest, which means that I'm not getting paid by any particular drug company or anybody to influence the way that I'll lecture today. So this is completely unbiased information that I give you today. And so some of the objectives that you will see is that we'll talk about today is how common is diabetes? Who should worry most about diabetes, and when should I get tested? How do I know if I have diabetes? Can diabetes be prevented? what if I have diabetes? What are my blood sugar goals? How do I get to these blood sugar goals? And how do I take care of myself if I do have diabetes? So at the end of this brief talk, I want everyone to be able to answer these questions. And so if we talk about the epidemic of diabetes, we see that 37 million people in the US have diabetes. That's about 11.3% of the population. Only about 1.5 million people have type 1. So this is majority type 2. And unfortunately, of the over 37 million people with diabetes, about 8.5 million people are completely undiagnosed. So that means over 20% of adults are already developing complications related to diabetes because they're not being able to control their blood sugar because they haven't been diagnosed. And so even taking a step back from that, 96 million people, almost 40% of Americans have prediabetes before they have even hit the threshold of overt diabetes. And as we age, we're more likely to get diabetes. So, anybody 65 and over, they're at most risk. And so almost 50% of those population, 50% of all people, so 1 in 2 people above 65 will have prediabetes, and we should take diabetes as a call to action. Prediabetes is definitely a call to action because you don't want to develop diabetes if you can. And so the most recent data actually shows that our underserved population are most affected. So we have our American Indians, Alaskan Natives, our Hispanic population, and our non-Hispanic Black population the most affected. So we're disproportionately affected by diabetes when we compare ourselves to the white population. And if we look just in Tennessee, we can see that the rates of diabetes is a little bit more than the national average. And so that's why a lot of physicians call Tennessee the diabetes belt and the stroke belt and things like that. So I gave you a few statistics here, and you see almost 34% of adults in Tennessee actually have prediabetes. So it's definitely something that we need to be aware of and that we need to be sure that we recognize early so we can prevent it if we can. Because almost 40 people in Tennessee are diagnosed every year with diabetes. And so to know whether you're at risk or not, you want to go ahead and take this risk assessment. And so you can find this online at the diabetes.org SOC risk test. And just put your information in here, your age, your gender, if you ever was diagnosed with gestational diabetes in pregnancy and things like that. And if you scored higher than 5, you are at increased risk, and that's something you need to talk to your physician about. And so the American Diabetes Association has come out with this chart here. Every year they update the guidelines, and the most recent says who should get tested. And so these are for adults who are completely without symptoms. So if a person has symptoms like vision changes, maybe blurry vision, urinating a lot, thirsty, always drinking, things like that, which would make us feel as though they may have diabetes, we'll test them immediately. But for others who don't have those symptoms, testing should begin in those people if they're adult and overweight with these particular BMIs, and you can actually go online and calculate your BMI. It's based on your height and weight. And if you have one or more of these risk factors. So a first degree relative, which is your parents, sibling, or children. If you belong to one of these high risk ethnicities, if you have a history of coronary disease like heart disease, if you have high blood pressure greater than the number here, 140/90, or if you are treated for high blood pressure. If you have a low HDL, which HDL is your good cholesterol. We say H stands for heavenly because that's your good cholesterol. You really want that to be above 50, but if it's low, then that's not a good sign. Or if your triglycerides, which are the fatty components of your blood, if that of your cholesterol, if that is high, and you can get these numbers from your doctor from a simple lab test. That's why I included them here. You want to be tested. Any woman who has had a polycystic ovarian syndrome, also called PCOS, a long period of physical inactivity, which I think with COVID, we all have been a little less physically active than we normally are, or if there's another condition that make you at increased risk of what we call insulin resistance. So basically, you need higher insulin levels than a person who is not at risk for diabetes. So if you're severely obese or have a condition called acanthosis nigricans, if you have pre-diabetes, have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, or if none of those exist, then testing should begin everybody else if you're 35 years or over. And then if those tests are normal, then you need to repeat at least every 3 years, or if symptoms develop, you may want to do that more often. And people living with HIV should get tested at initial diagnosis and if they change their therapy, because some therapies for HIV will increase your risk for diabetes. And so to know whether or not you are diagnosed with diabetes, I gave you these numbers here. If you're completely normal, your A1C is less than 5.7. And when I say fasting plasma glucose, that's when you have not eaten anything for a minimum of 8 hours, and you go to your doctor's office and get a lab test. It's not one of the screening tests where you prick your fingers on one of the glucometers, because I know some people's employers will have like different screenings and things like that. So this is actually a blood draw. When you prick your finger, that's whole blood. It's all the components of the blood. However, when you draw, when they get when you get blood drawn from your doctor's office, they'll take that blood and they'll separate it into components. And plasma is one of those components, and they'll test the sugar in that. And so that's the number we're talking about here. And then your oral glucose tolerance test is one of those tests where you'll not eat anything for 8 hours. You'll go to your doctor's office. They'll give you a drink that includes 75 grams of sugar, and then they'll wait 2 hours and they'll test your plasma glucose again. And if it's less than 140, you're completely normal. This column here shows if you have pre-diabetes. So 5.7 to 6.4 for A1C, 100 to 125 for fasting plasma glucose, and your oral glucose tolerance test of 140 to 190. In order to have diabetes, overt diabetes, which needs definite treatment, your A1C has to be greater than or equal to 6.5. Fasting glucose will be 126 or greater, and oral glucose tolerance test greater than 200. You'll notice there's an extra number here in this column. Random glucose, plasma glucose, are greater than 200, but that's with classic symptoms. I'm urinating a lot. I have blurry vision. I'm extremely thirsty, things like that. And if they randomly, you don't have to fast, if they randomly get draw your blood and your blood sugar is over 200, greater than or equal to 200, and you have those classic symptoms and you have diabetes, I will say you do want to get these tests repeated. And so you have 2 tests to confirm the diagnosis. One of the reasons why I like to make sure that the community knows these numbers is that not every clinician will recognize the importance of intervening at the stage of pre-diabetes, because there's no drug that's really approved from the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, for treatment of diabetes. It is a lifestyle, but some clinicians say, oh, I won't need to treat it with the drug, so I won't even mention it. So it's important for you to know your numbers so you'll know whether or not you have pre-diabetes. I have family members all the time who will send me their lab work and they'll be pre-diabetic and the clinician will not have said anything. And so what do we really need to do about the diabetes pandemic? And the answer is prevention. We don't want to get to the point where we actually have diabetes. There was a study called the Diabetes Prevention Program. They basically took people who had prediabetes and they put them into three groups. One group was intensive lifestyle intervention, and we'll discuss in a moment what that means. The other two group were um, about 1,000 people got the lifestyle intervention, about 1,000 people received metformin, the medication metformin, and about 1,000 people got a pill that didn't have anything in it. It was just a blank pill. And so lifestyle intervention means dieting. So you want to reduce your calorie intake by 500 to 700 calories a day, or based on your weight. You want to reduce the total amount of fat that you have. You want to lose and maintain a weight loss of 7% of your initial body weight. You can do this by using one of the Mediterranean DASH diets, meal replacements, anything of that sort. So whatever helps you, you just want to have more calories out than calories in. So you want to burn more calories than you actually eat. And you may need to be referred to a dietitian to make this happen. And then you want to have about 150 minutes per week of exercise, usually split up in about 30 minutes a day for 5 days of the week. And that includes aerobic exercise and resistance. You want to in the study, there was frequent contacts with the participants of the study, with the investigators, and the participants monitored themselves very closely. And so what they found in this study was that if I am able to lose weight, reduce my calories, exercise, all those things we just talked about, I will reduce my risk of developing diabetes if I already have prediabetes by about 60% if I do the lifestyle. You'll see the lifestyle in orange here. If I do the lifestyle intervention. And we see that it may actually be a little bit even more effective if we look at different races. For the most affected races we see for our Hispanic and our Asian population. However, if I don't do any lifestyle changes, but I take a medication called metformin, well, that only works half as good, about 30% on average. And so basically, just lifestyle modification works twice as good as even taking a pill. And so you can all do this yourself. And there's something called the legacy effect, meaning even after I stop my lifestyle changes, even after I stop the drugs, meaning the metformin, you actually may still benefit some. And you may actually have a sustained benefit of about 10 years in these different studies here. This Chinese study here, the Quang study, showed a 20-year benefit. And if you notice, well, look at the drugs. They looked at metformin, a medication called rosiglitazone, a medication called pioglitazone, also called Actos. They failed. Within 3 months, that benefit actually went away. So really, lifestyle is what you want to maintain. So even if you were to stop doing it after a while, you still have some long-term benefit. And so even lifestyle is able to reverse some of the complications for diabetes and prediabetes. Most people think, okay, if I'm prediabetes, I don't have anything. If I have prediabetes, I don't have anything to worry about. Well, we know now that people will get eye disease and even nerve problems. We call that neuropathy, where they get numbness and tingling that starts in their feet and eventually may even go up to their hands. And even when you have prediabetes, and we notice that from the studies that even if you were to do these lifestyle changes that we just discussed, then your nerves actually will grow back and you will can reverse some of the damage that those blood sugars have done. And so, but not all the time are we able to prevent pre-diabetes, and you end up going into overt diabetes here. And then if you get to overt diabetes, now you have to worry about more severe complications, like something we call hyperglycemic crisis. Sometimes your blood sugar is 4 and 500. You can also get very low blood sugars, especially if you are not on a correct medication regimen. Other things associated with having diabetes is elevated blood pressures and cholesterol. Not only are you more likely to have a heart attack, but you're actually more likely to die from a heart attack if you have one. More likely to have a stroke, eye disease, kidney disease, and even amputations. And usually those amputations are because of the nerve issues that our people living with diabetes have. If they aren't able to feel their feet, sometimes they'll injure them, which may lead to infection and eventually amputation, unfortunately. If you have diabetes, there are some blood sugar targets that you should reach for. You should want your A1C. A1C, hemoglobin A1C, is basically your average blood sugars over 3 months. Is actually taken, you can check your A1C just by one simple one simple blood test, and they will basically give you an average of your blood sugar. You want that to be less than 7%. Well, if you're checking your sugars with the glucometer, just your self-monitor checks, when you prick your finger before your meals, you want your blood sugars to be less than about 80 to 130. And then after meals, you want it to be less than 180 if you can. Just to kind of give you a brief insight onto what kind of medications that are commonly used. Metformin is one of the, usually one of the initial ones that are started, but the new American Diabetes Association, their drug guidelines say that any of them actually can be used, just depending on what other health problems that you have. You have a class called the SGLT2 inhibitors, and I actually put the names here if you look, if you need to recognize the names. DPP4 inhibitors. All of these are incredibly safe, but are normally chosen depending on an individual's other health problems or financial situation or side effect profile. So for instance, if a person has kidney problems or have heart problems, then the SGLT2 inhibitors, the canagliflozin, and all of these medications will probably be the choice. If a patient has heart failure and have had a heart attack or stroke, a GLP-1 receptor agonist will also, and those are your medications called your Trulicities, your Victosas, things like that you'll see on your commercials. And so if cost is an issue, this pioglitazone, Actos, and all these sulfonylureas are a very affordable option. So just discuss them with your clinician and definitely be honest about your side effects. We don't want you to be miserable, and we don't want you to not take the medicine. So metformin can cause pretty severe nausea or diarrhea in some patients. I want my patients to be honest because I could change them to something else versus them either living with the side effects or not taking the medicine. There are some things that you need to know for your general health maintenance. You need to make sure that you don't develop a condition called retinopathy. Diabetes is the #1 cause of blindness in this country. So you want to make sure you get an eye examination every year. And if you have type 2 diabetes, the current guidelines say 5 years after the diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, go ahead and get an eye exam. But even that recommendation is really falling out of favor. So if you have type 1, you should get that done immediately. In people who get pregnant and have diabetes, you really should go ahead and get an eye exam in every trimester of pregnancy because retinopathy can get so bad that it can actually cause you to be blind by the end of it. You want to make sure that you don't have any nerve problems by getting these tests done by your doctor. It takes 1 minute to do a monofilament test or to put a tuning fork on your foot. And so if you have type 2 diabetes, get it done at diagnosis. 5 years if you have a type 1, 5 years after diagnosis. Make sure your kidneys stay healthy by giving urine samples. And I put that information here. Make sure that your clinician looks at your feet at every visit, checks your blood pressure at every visit, and at least checks your cholesterol when you're diagnosed and once a year. Once you develop diabetes, it's not the end all be all. You definitely want to control it, but you also can go into remission, especially by losing quite a bit of weight, even if it takes bariatric surgery to do so. And so you'll see here some of the predictors of remission of diabetes. And when I say remission, that means you don't even have to take medication, but you do have to still watch your diet. You still need to exercise, and you still need to be evaluated by your clinician to make sure that the diabetes doesn't necessarily come back. And so predictors of remission, you see, if you've had less than 2 years of if you had diabetes for less than 2 years, that's the most sensitive predictor, meaning that's the one that really shows that it could be, it can go into remission. However, if you had it 10 years, it can definitely go, especially if you lose at least 6.5% of your current weight with different fitness improvements. If your A1C was initially low and has not gotten very high, you're probably able to make that A1C go back down into the normal range, and if you're not on any blood pressure medicine. So just in conclusion, type 2 diabetes is the result of your body not necessarily able to secrete insulin like you, it's basically you're not able to put out enough insulin to cover your blood sugars. So the things that you eat, your body's not able to produce enough insulin. Now, if you have prediabetes, you may not have any symptoms. That means you may have already developed complications. So please, please, please go to your physician. Make sure that, these things are on your radar and your clinician's radar, especially if you go on that website from the American Diabetes Association and see that you're at increased risk. So if these American Diabetes Association recommendations are followed carefully, those dreaded complications of diabetes will be reduced. Lastly, if you have diabetes, be kind to yourself. It doesn't mean you can't have a piece of cake or ice cream from time to time. You just have to eat those things in moderation. And once again, when it comes to diabetes, prevention is the key. You do want to prevent it if at all possible. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Thank you. A very thorough presentation, and one of the more easily followed and understood presentations that I've heard about diabetes. So thank you very, very much. Again, are there any questions that you have for Dr. James? Do we have any questions on other social medias?
Checking now.
If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat or raise your hand, or you can open your mic and ask the question if you're on Zoom. Okay, well, I know that you did a pretty thorough job for me, Dr. James, and I'm so grateful that you accepted to be our presenter today at the 9th hour, actually. So thank you very much. And I want to thank Loretta Miller, who's one of our co-workers. Just a moment, who's one of our co-workers who reached out and was able to get a commitment from you. So thank you so very, very much. Yes, I do.
I have a question about any recommendations on cookbooks.
So really, whenever we think about cookbooks and the way to cook, you want to have something that is low calorie. What I like to do is I like to figure out healthy substitutions. And so not necessarily, so for instance, if you really like spaghetti, well, the pasta will increase your blood sugar. So there's something called spaghetti squash. And so you cut it in half, you bake it, and you kind of take a fork and peel off the insides, and it looks just like spaghetti noodles. And it tastes pretty close to pasta. And so I like to tell people to make healthy substitutions like that. So for instance, if you like pasta salad, instead of the regular rotini noodles, there's something with chickpeas. You have chickpea. And so you won't get all of those carbs. You definitely want to have a high fiber diet as well, because if you have high fiber, then your body will not absorb all of the sugar. So say for instance, when we think about drinking orange juice versus eating an orange. Well, if you drink the juice, you don't have all of the pulp and fiber that you'll get if you actually eat the orange and eat the flesh. So your blood sugar will spike straight up with the orange juice versus it will go up if you eat an orange, but it will level out pretty quickly and go back down. So no particular cookbook by name, but I will say, whatever, I encourage my patients to basically make lifestyle changes. You know, for instance, for most people, going on a keto diet may be okay for a few months, but they can't do that for the rest of their lives. And as soon as you start back eating carbs, you're going to gain the weight back. So we need to figure out, let's maybe reduce the amount of carbohydrates instead of going completely no carb, because that's not sustainable, if that makes sense.
Also, Carolyn reminded us that the library is a wonderful source to find cookbooks of all kinds. So I certainly agree with Dr. James, lifestyle change. I keep reminding myself of that, but I get there. Lifestyle change is the best option. So, but if you want to use cookbooks, again, the library is a wonderful resource for those.
And so someone asked in the chat that people will eat a peppermint to bring their sugars up if it's low. That's absolutely a great thing to do. It is okay. Some people will have any type of hard candy, whether it's butterscotch or anything like that. What I will say is eat 1 or 2 peppermints. Don't, have a whole handful. Sometimes it will take about 15 minutes for your blood sugar to increase. So we call it the rule of 15. So 15 grams of carbs, which is like a slice of bread. And if your blood sugar is low, you get 15 grams of carbs, or 1 Skittle is 1 gram of carbs. So if you have kids, and it's Halloween just passed, if you have some Skittles laying around, you eat 15 of those Skittles, wait 15 minutes, and then recheck your blood sugar. Because what you don't want to do is, drink a little bit of orange juice or eat 1 peppermint, check your blood sugar 1 minute later, it hasn't went up. Then you drink more orange juice or drink more Coke, and you keep doing this, and now your blood sugar's in the 400s.
Thank you. We have some wonderful questions in the chat about holidays are coming. Any suggestions on how to navigate the big family dinners?
So what I will say is, firstly, we feed the ones we love. That's what we do in the South. I grew up in the South. We feed the ones we love. And so I think, firstly, for the ones who cook, we do have to be cognizant that, they'll say, oh, you have to try my, sweet potato pie, and you have to try my red velvet cake, and you have to try my pecan pie, and you have to try, be mindful. If someone says that they're okay, please accept that answer. Secondly, for the people who love to eat and not necessarily the ones who cook, what you may want to do is it's going to be about portion control. 1 or 2 days of maybe eating a little sweet potato pie, because you can't miss the sweet potato pie. You're honest. One person who makes that really great sweet potato pie. You only get it that 1 or 2 days out of the year. Go ahead and eat it, but definitely have portion control. Get a knife and cut a real small piece versus get a spoon and you sit down with the whole pie. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So any over-the-counter supplements, someone asked. What I will say is a lot of the over-the-counter herbal supplements, they don't necessarily have basically, when we think about over-the-counter medications, we don't have a whole lot of studies about them. The reason why is there's no money to be made. These drug companies want to make millions and millions of dollars on this. So they're not going to spend millions of dollars testing them if they're not going to make that money back. And so with that being said, a lot of the supplements may not necessarily help. However, you do have some. For instance, any insoluble fiber, when you increase your fiber intake, just like I gave you the example with the orange, you will decrease your blood sugar spikes, even like Metamucil, things like that. Other over-the-counter supplements, not necessarily herbals, but there's a weight loss medication called Ally that's at Walmart. Once again, no disclosures. I don't work for Ally, the Ally company, so I'm not necessarily encouraging you to get it. Well, what it does is it will it actually keeps you from absorbing fat and things like that, and so that will actually help you keep your weight down. However, when Ally keeps you from absorbing fat, it keeps the fat in your stool. So that means it will make you have fatty stools and sometimes diarrhea, especially if you eat say a piece of fried chicken or fried, catfish Fridays or something like that. You eat that fried food, it's not going to absorb, it's going to stay in your stool. You're going to be running to the bathroom. Some people even get what we call stool leakage, so they'll have a little incontinence and mess up their clothes. And so you have to be really careful about those supplements because not all supplements are made the same. It may have 500 milligrams on the bottle, but not a pill in there may even have 500 milligrams in it, or it may have more than that. So you really have to be careful. Turmeric is something you always see in the news. And actually, I think I saw one of the doctor shows talking about turmeric. Well, some studies have come out recently that they actually may cause liver damage. So some of these things can really cause more problems than it's worth. Most of them probably are overall safe. They're just gonna, hurt your pocketbook is what I like to say. What other? Is fasting or what does OMAD stand for? Is it a good way to prevent diabetes?
1 meal a day.
Or 1 meal a day. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, so basically intermittent fasting is what you're asking. So, studies have shown that it doesn't matter if you do a low calorie diet, a low carb diet, or intermittent fasting, you probably will lose the same amount of weight. And so the effects are the same. So basically you have to figure out what is best for you. So we know we have to prevent diabetes. And so mostly with the intermittent fasting, people will lower their calorie intake because there's a shorter amount of time that you can eat. So with that being said, more than likely you're going to lower that calorie intake by 500 to 700 that we talked about. If that makes sense. I'm sorry, Ms. Campbell, I think you're muted.
Sorry, there's another question that says, my daughter loves pasta. How much is too much?
It's all about balance. And I'm sorry, Miss White, I just want to make sure I answered your question. You were about to say something.
Oh, I was saying thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Okay, so when we talk about pasta, what I will say is you definitely want to think about serving sizes. And so when you think about serving sizes of anything, you may want to even use your fingers and hands. So a thumb is probably a teaspoon or a tablespoon, excuse me. A fist is probably a cup. When we talk about pasta, well, it kind of depends. Well, firstly, when we're thinking about our sugar, if she has diabetes, well, we kind of want to use, we want to eat within reason. So for instance, if she loves pasta, maybe she can skip the dessert, or she's going to have a no calorie drink when she's eating the pasta. So it's all about balance. So I wouldn't tell her to eat pasta, then have a Coke, like a full fat Coke, and have a piece of cheesecake for dessert. So you can still have the things that you love, but definitely if you're gonna have pasta, when you go to say Olive Garden, they have those breadsticks. Skip the breadsticks, so you can't have it all. Or if you have it all, have a very small portion of it all.
Thank you.
You may
Wonderful.
also want to check your blood sugar before. If she's diabetic, check her blood sugar before she eats the pasta. Then check blood sugars maybe an hour after she's eaten the pasta to see how it, because you want to give it some time to absorb, to see how it affects her blood sugar. If her blood sugar before and after she eats the pasta, say for instance, if she's on insulin, so she checked her blood sugar, gave herself the insulin, ate the pasta, and then checked her blood sugar an hour later. Well, if she's less than 180 an hour later, well, we know that the insulin that she gave herself is going to cover herself for the amount of pasta she ate. Well, if her blood sugar is 300, well, she may have eaten too much pasta or didn't give herself enough medication to cover that meal. So I think someone's hands is raised. A. Perry.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. So when I was listening to the young lady that was talking about eating one meal a day, wouldn't eat in moderation be better than trying to eat one meal a day? And is that being taught to diabetic people instead of eating one meal a day to eat in moderation?
So I absolutely think I think it depends on the person, but I absolutely think eating in moderation is best. I think having a 3 meal a day, if you're a 3 meal a day person, is the best thing. Now, some people only eat 2 meals a day. They're not breakfast people. I think it does things to your metabolism as well when you only eat 1 time a day, because instead of burning it as energy, sometimes it just stores it as fat because it's like, oh, I finally got a morsel of, carbohydrate. That's kind of like what happens with the keto diet as well. So 1 meal a day for most people is not feasible. But what I will say is don't eat if you're not hungry. So if you're not hungry, then don't eat. There's actually an endocrinologist in town who may actually go a day or 2 without eating. He drinks. You have to drink or, you'll die. But if he's not hungry, he doesn't eat. But when he does eat, he eats like 6,000 calories. But
His body makes up for it.
Right. It's almost like if you're diabetic and if you have diabetes and your blood sugar gets low at night, what I will say is you need to reduce your medications. You shouldn't eat to keep your blood sugars from going low. When you eat, if you're not hungry to keep your blood sugars from going low, all you're going to do is gain weight because you're increasing the amount of calories. If you want to keep your blood sugar from going low, you need to reduce whatever medications you're on.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
This has really been an awesome session. We've learned so much from both Caroline and from Dr. James, and I think that it is just awesome that we are able to bring this type of information to the community. Again, it will be posted on our website later. And we also encourage you to share today's webinar with your social media network. And there are questions that you can always, if you have, you can always go to our website, or I'm sure that if you reach out, we can reach out to Dr. James or to Carolyn to get the answers to those questions for you. So just some friendly reminders. We're going to start with Duke with our friendly reminders.
Good afternoon, everyone. A friendly reminder, going to bring up a screen really quick to share. We want you to join the All of Us program. we know medical research hasn't always seen you, so we're trying to change that. So join all of us to help shape the future of health. So go to the website www.joinallofus.org/NBCUSA. And if you go to that link, you should see our executive director and project director on the screen, and all you have to do is scroll down and just enroll there, and you will get email reminders about what All of Us is. So be one in a million to join All of Us.
Thank you so much. One of the great things I like about All of Us is they are trying to do what is called precision medicine. In other words, we know that a lot of medications for our bodies are based on studies, and those studies are not on us. And so what we're trying to do is get people of color to join into this study so that we can have medicines that's more favorable to our bodies and perhaps do a better job of helping us to stay healthy, or once we're healthy, of helping us to not unhealthy, or once we have some type of disease or illness, and helping us to be able to better manage it. So again, go to that website and please join us. So next, I want to remind you that on Monday, November the 21st at 6 p.m. to please join Ask Mary and Pat webinar, who they are answering all the questions that you may have about Medicaid. And so we want you to get those answers so that you can better use your healthcare and prevent illnesses instead of trying to intervene and with treatment. And finally, remembering that next third Wednesday parent resource chat will be Wednesday, January the 18th. And our topics will include information on Cervical Health Awareness Month. You may learn more about us at www.oakhillregionalcdc.com and www.healthykidsms.org. Again, that's www.healthykidsms.org. Once again, we acknowledge our board chair, Jennifer Garrett, and our executive director, Dr. Michael O. Minor. This has been a production of the Oak Hill Community Development Corporation, belonging, building, and bridging in the Mid-South region and across the state of Mississippi. We will now sign off of our social media sites. Those of you on Zoom, can you just stay for a few minutes so we can close out? Thank you.